And according to prophecy, there's only two powers that are going to be the last two that are going to be standing when it's all said and done and when the dust settles.
Yeah.
And that's the first beast of Revelation 13 and the second beast of Revelation 13. That's what God has predicted. And I think we're seeing that direction. We're heading in that direction.
Listen.
Oh.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
How do you do?
Thank you for
Nice
having
to
us.
see you again. You're very
Thank
welcome to meet with you. Thank you for your patience waiting as I had to cover all of the delegations.
You know, you see the significance of having an American Pope. The significance.
Make all of us take notice.
What can you tell us about Pope Leo XIV?
Well, he's an American, and that in itself is something that is shocking many people who never thought this would, be possible. The general thinking has long been that America has too much power in the world, and
Sabbath blue laws.
Blue laws.
A blue law.
Yeah, we'll make that. Yeah, we'll make that law.
Sabbath blue laws.
Blue laws.
A blue law.
Blue laws.
Blue laws.
Blue laws.
Sabbath laws on Sunday.
And so reaching out to the state.
Maybe the Sabbath laws.
Blue laws.
Blue laws.
Blue laws.
Sunday closing laws.
Blue laws, right?
Blue laws meant everything was closed.
The blue laws.
Blue laws.
Blue laws.
Sundays accepted.
The blue laws.
Maybe Sunday Sabbath laws? Or blue laws.
Sabbath rest.
The Sabbath and the sacred blue laws.
proposed commerce on Sabbath.
For Sabbath laws.
I would say yes and amen. I'll vote for that.
Sabbath laws.
Blue laws.
Sabbath laws.
By attending church on Sunday.
Now remember the blue laws?
Sabbath and obscenity laws.
Blue laws and
A national honoring of the Lord's Day.
These laws are known as blue laws.
To remember the blue laws.
They have the blue law.
They were called blue laws.
The idea of blue laws still makes a lot of sense.
The only way to start the return to moral order in this country is by force. It's the only way. It's the only way. It has to be by force, at least for a time. We have to regulate morality by force, at least for a time. It's literally the only solution.
We really need to be really ruthless when it comes to the exercise of power.
I believe by signing this bill, God's people, the American people, can now rest on Sunday.
The Catholic faith I have found to be the true faith, and these Seventh-day Adventists clearly do not know their scriptures. Sunday is the Sabbath because we all know Jesus rose on that morning.
In weekly cycles. Inside each of us, there's an internal clock quietly ticking. a rhythm of 7 days that science observes but can't fully explain. From the beating of your heart to the ebb and flow of hormones, your body keeps time in surprising ways. In fact, as one biologist noted, time is embedded in our genes. It's not just daily rhythms, like sleeping at night and waking by day. There's also a 7-day cycle programmed into our biology. Could it be that this weekly rhythm was set by design? Think about it. Many creatures and even plants follow a 7-day pattern without any calendars or alarms. For research in chronobiology, the study of biological clocks has found these circaseptan rhythms, meaning about 7 days, in all kinds of life.
Show me in the Bible, where does it say that there is a sanctuary in heaven? Jesus is not the Messiah. He was just an ordinary Jewish man, and the Jews are in the process of building the third temple to welcome the true Messiah.
You know, people have talked about the end of the world since the beginning of civilization, and that's not trivial. It's not just superstition or religious hysteria. It's the recognition of a very real psychological truth.
I never felt the need to ask God for forgiveness. I just try and do the right thing as a good person.
Like, how do we deal with these Adventists? It's quite simple. Just round them all up, feed them to the lions, just like they did back then in the glory days of Rome.
This world is clearly not ready for the next pandemic, and we can see that many lives will be lost because our unwillingness to be prepared. Vaccines are of dire importance.
We are living in the golden age of technology. It's only a matter of time before artificial intelligence becomes a part of our everyday lives.
The 2030 Development Project has been the subject of conspiracy theories.
We must save the planet before it's too late.
Guys, have you seen what's going on in the local stores? Food supplies is running low, prices are skyrocketing, but the American people are blind to see it.
The current issue that's in the newsstands right now of Time Magazine. Can I show it to you?
Go ahead.
There it is right there. Time Magazine. Can I show you the headline inside on page 9? I hope you can read that. I hope you can see it. Let me see. There it is. Can you read that, Dr. O? What does that say?
It says,
well, thank you very much, Klaus, and hello to everyone in beautiful Davos. This has been a truly historic week in the United States. 3 days ago, I took the oath of office, and we began the Golden Age of America. The Golden Age of America begins right now. From this day forward, our country will flourish and be respected again all over the world. We will be the envy of every nation, and we will not allow ourselves to be taken advantage of any longer. During every single day of the Trump administration, I will very simply put America first. Front. A Trump administration, our Christian heritage will be cherished, protected, defended, like you've never seen before.
But to truly understand where this push for Sunday legislation began, we have to go back much further than 1888, back to the moment when religious rest was first woven into civil law. Come with me further back in time, back to the 4th century. It was a time of turmoil in society. Just as the prophecies of Daniel 2, 7, 8, and 11 had predicted, the fourth kingdom, known as the Roman Empire, or as some like to call it, the pagan Roman Empire, was on a serious decline. The emperors were trying to hold society together, and part of that included trying to get everyone on the same page in regards to the worship of the gods, and I'm talking about the pagan gods. As a result, Christians were singled out, and as predicted in the prophecies contained in Revelation chapter 2, a vicious 10-year persecution had broken out. Emperor Diocletian had instituted another in a cycle of persecutions that had taken place off and on for over 300 years, and Christians were growing weary of being the scourge of society. Many were giving up their faith, and then something happened. And much like Mariah Carey said in one of her most famous songs, for them, a hero came along, and his name was Constantine. Soon enough, Constantine would experience a so-called conversion and begin conquering under the emblem of the cross and in the name of the Lord. And his rise to power would essentially bring an end to the Christian persecution and an end to Christians being second-class citizens. It was then that Christianity would begin its ascent into replacing the pagan religions and become the official religion of the Roman Empire. Within a decade or two, something pivotal would happen that would reshape the Roman Empire, and the ripple effects of what happened are still being felt today. And that thing was that Constantine would pass the very first Sunday law in history. And as I'm sure that you know, it would not be the last. The thing is that many Sabbath keepers, including many Seventh-day Adventists, have always thought that this move was Constantine changing the Sabbath. And while there is some truth to that, it's not the full story. Constantine didn't change the Sabbath himself, but rather he legislated a day of rest because he saw that many Christians were already taking Sunday as a day of rest, in violation of the fourth commandment, I might add. What Constantine did was similar to what we find in the Project 2025 document. What he did was similar to what Wilbur Crafts tried to do and what Pope Leo XIII tried to do. Essentially, Constantine had passed a labor law that obviously had religious connections, and you can read it for yourself. Constantine's law called for a cessation of work, to the Sabbath commandment. And he stated that all judges and townships and all occupations of trade rest on the venerable day of the sun. This was something new at this time, a day of rest for pagans and Christians alike, a day for some commonality, a day that could perhaps unite society and by extension, the empire, a day that could perhaps make Rome great again, hint, hint. And it's not just me that believes the hint, hint. Take a look at this clip discussing making Sunday a day of rest in Europe. And please pay close attention to what this woman has to say.
In our fast-paced world filled with deadlines, responsibilities, meetings, and the constant buzz of technology, it's easy to overlook what is important in life and the importance of collectively taking a break. Already the Roman Emperor Constantine recognized the special importance of a common day off and introduced the work-free Sunday. To protect the Sunday as a common day off is especially important for our societies, for the social cohesion.
She said it, not me. Clearly, the connection is being made to Constantine in regard to legislating a day of rest. And this is not an Adventist that's making this connection, as some people are quick to say. This is just a regular person that's able to take an unbiased look at history and see the impact that Constantine had. And by the way, it's also important to note that this is not the first person to make a Constantine connection, as we discussed in a recent video. Here's another clip from a Christian making the Constantine connection.
You remind me of the great Roman Emperor, Constantine the Great. It is my great honor to present you with this holy cross. This cross is the very symbol that led this great Roman Emperor Constantine to victory.
Now, just to be clear, as I say in all my videos, this is not about Donald Trump. Trump is simply a placeholder that Christians are using to push forward their agenda, and they will use anybody, whether Trump or someone else, to help them push their agenda along. And I want you to keep that in mind. The church looking to the state to protect them. In a similar way, Constantine did this for the church in the past. And because of this Constantine connection, it is so important to understand why Constantine did what he did. Generally speaking, many believe that the passing of that Sunday law was sort of a dog whistle to the Christians, signaling that Constantine would fight for them. I mean, obviously, history tells us that he was already fighting under the banner of the cross and was now claiming to be a Christian. And many Christians heard the whistle loud and clear. Over time, Christian leaders began responding to this whistle. They saw in Constantine what they believed was a precursor to the ultimate triumph of Christianity. They now believed that God was sovereign and that part of his conquering would be to conquer Rome in the name of God. It was out of this dangerous theology that a new order of things would take place that would change the Roman Empire and the history of humanity forever. And as you're about to see more clearly, it's about to change America as well. Most people, when looking at the very first Sunday law, only focus on Constantine, but there was another man who was equally important, if not more important, to understand in regards to the merging of church and state. And that man was the church father named Eusebius of Caesarea. Eusebius was arguably Constantine's biggest supporter, even writing his biography. He came to see the rise of Constantine as the fulfillment of God's sovereign will. From his perspective, the entire arc of human history was moving towards the Christianization of the Roman Empire. And for him, Constantine's rise and subsequent conversion was the fulfillment and manifestation of God's will for humanity. This is so similar to what we see taking place today among Christian leaders. They're fighting to establish God's kingdom on earth. And for them, any president, whether Trump or anyone else that will support their cause, is seen as an extension of God performing his will through government. This is why so many can sit back unconcerned about how these laws will affect those who are not Christians. It's because they believe that they have a divine right to advance God's will through government. And much like Christ said while he was on earth, that men will persecute others thinking that they're doing the will of God. And it can, has, and will be done with a clear conscience. Or maybe I should say, a seared conscience. For Eusebius, who can be seen as the spiritual father of the ideology of the union of church and state, he envisioned a symphony between the church and state, both working together under divine direction, with the church supporting the emperor through prayer and moral guidance, and the emperor supporting the church through protection and legislation. These two principles working together is what you're looking at when you see these religious leaders clamoring to get their hands on the president to pray for him. This is what you're seeing when the president stands in front of a church to take a picture holding the Bible. It's a statement that he is with the church to make Washington, D.C. Christian again.
Of this nation.
Ours should be the bold ambition to claim Washington, D.C. for Christ and disciple it, to once again walk in the ways of God.
That was a clip that we saw in part 2 of this series, and I hope you're watching these in order. Anyway, in short, that clip speaks volumes. I want you to take a look at the name of the video. I mean, really look at it and take it in, because there's so much there that we need to unpack in order to understand the past, present, and future of the Sunday Law. The video, as you can see, is entitled, Make Washington, D.C. Christian Again, and it speaks to the desire among these Christians to essentially stage a coup of the government. But this coup is not like the military coups that we've seen take place around the world. It's not a coup that takes place on a physical level, but rather it's one that they believe begins in the spiritual realm and then continues into society. Unlike the coups we've seen where people try to overthrow the government in the name of a world leader, their coup is one that's being done in the name of the Lord. They believe this is God's country, and no one is going to take it from them.
Listen, this is God's nation, and nobody is going to take it away from him. That's right. God Almighty is head of this nation.
They believe that they have a mandate to advance God's will through government. They believe that they have a mandate, or dare I say, a 7-mountain mandate.
And the message was that there are 7 molders of culture, or 7 world kingdoms, and that he who could take those kingdoms could take the harvest of nations. Now, this illustration is the way I see it. I look at it this way. I see those 7 molders of culture as being the religion mountain, as a metaphor for something you've got to take or climb. Then we have education, we could say, family. These are in no particular order of importance. They all represent the forces that shape societies and nations. Government, media, art, which is the entertainment mountain, and business, which is where we have the economics mountain happening also. Now, these 7 fields of influence are very powerful, so powerful, in fact, that he who occupies the top of those mountains can literally shape the agenda that forms nations.
They believe that they have a mandate to conquer every facet of society so that God can reign on this earth. In other words, they want to help God out so that he can be ruler. As we saw in the last episode, this mindset has been growing for well over a century. And today, we're going to find out how it began and where it's headed. And it started much further back than when Sabbath keepers were arrested for working on Sunday, and even further back than 1888, when Henry Blair tried to pass a law that said, a bill to secure to the people the enjoyment of the first day of the week, commonly known as the Lord's Day, as a day of rest, and to promote its observance as a day of religious worship. That phrase, Lord's Day, appeared 3 times in that bill. And the question begs to be asked, why is it in there? Why would he need to put that in a document dealing with just giving people a day off on Sunday? The answer to that question is simple, and it's the same reason that the Project 2025 document stated that the Sabbath day of rest would, and I quote, default to Sunday. Now here's another question. Why would it default to Sunday? Who gets to determine that? It's clear that there's something deeper going on here than just Sunday. As we saw in the previous episode, the foundation of this is built on an idea. And that idea is that God is sovereign, and that because he's sovereign, and I'm going to make up a word here, many Christians believe that they should help his sovereignness by taking over the government. But to truly understand where this push for Sunday legislation began, we have to go back much further than 1888, back to the moment when religious rest was first woven into civil law. Come with me further back in time, back to the 4th century. It was a time of turmoil in society, just as the prophecies of Daniel 2.
Fires, earthquakes, moral confusion. Every headline seems to whisper that an impending crisis is looming. It's as if an unseen storm is gathering strength, about to break upon humanity. This isn't just about news stories or prophetic charts, and it's about people. Think of a worried mother praying for her children's future in a world of constant change. We all long for safety, for hope, for something solid to hold on to when everything around us is shaking. As Christians, we've read the verses about perilous times, 2 Timothy 3:1, but now we're living in those times. Our faith, our families, and our freedoms feel like they hang in the balance. We ask, where is God in all this chaos? What does it mean and what comes next? To answer those questions, we need to step back and see the big picture. The Bible reveals that our world is caught in the middle of a cosmic conflict, a war between good and evil that began long before we were born. From the very beginning, an enemy has been fighting against God's plan of love. One author describes how, from the very beginning of the great controversy in heaven, it has been Satan's purpose to overthrow the law of God. In heaven ages ago, Lucifer rebelled against God's law of love and was cast out. Ever since, he's waged the same war here on earth, deceiving people and stirring up rebellion against God's commandments. This ancient conflict is the unseen story behind the story of our troubled times. Hold that picture in mind. The wound that started all this was inflicted in paradise itself. When humanity fell into sin, the harmony of Eden was shattered, and the human family was drawn into this great controversy. Through history, God offered grace and guidance, but often people chose their own ways over God's way. The deepest cut of all has been the attack on God's own law, which is a reflection of his character of love. Satan knows that if he can get us to cast aside God's law, the world will plunge into darkness. And so, from ancient times through the Dark Ages and into today, he has sown lies to make people doubt God's word and ignore his commandments. The stage is set. The struggle between light and darkness has reached our time. Right now, forces are actively at work, leading people away from God's truth and preparing the world for the final crisis. In fact, the last great conflict has already begun. We can see it unfolding around us. Moral values once taken for granted are being thrown aside. Even within churches, basic truths are being questioned. Long ago, prophecy warned of a coming showdown between the laws of men and the precepts of Jehovah, a battle between human tradition and God's commandments. That battle is no longer theoretical. It's happening now in headlines, courtrooms, classrooms, and even living rooms. Each new crisis, whether a natural disaster or a social upheaval, is a sign that something bigger is about to break upon the world. But don't lose heart. The story is about to shine light in the darkness. Stay with us. To truly understand the impending crisis, we must recognize its core issue, the war against God's law. This war isn't new. It began in heaven and has raged through every age. God's law is His design for our good, but Satan has always hated it. He knows that without God's law, the world plunges into chaos. The devil knows that if people set aside even one of God's precepts, the result is ultimately the same. God's authority is rejected. In other words, to break even one commandment knowingly is to stand in rebellion against the lawgiver. Satan's strategy has always been deception. In Eden, he twisted God's words. Today, he persuades many that God's law is harsh or outdated. Satan's claim that God's law is no longer binding defies reason. Every nation has laws to maintain order, so how could the universe function without God's moral law? If the Creator had no standard of right and wrong, there would be only confusion. No wonder the final struggle is described as a battle between Bible faith and a counterfeit religion built on human ideas. Even now, we see the forces aligning, those who uphold God's commandments versus those who push them aside. It all boils down to a question of loyalty. Will we obey God or follow the serpent's whisper that we can be our own gods? God's law eventually becomes slaves to violence and vice. This dark chapter stands as a warning to the world. If we forget God and His law, we invite darkness and disaster. Now let's turn our eyes to today. Do we see any parallels? Absolutely. We live in an age of increasing lawlessness. The idea that people are released from obeying God has weakened the force of moral obligation in society. When the world says, "Do your own thing," there's no absolute truth. We shouldn't be surprised to reap a harvest of chaos. Lawlessness, dissipation, and corruption are sweeping in upon us like an overwhelming tide. We see it in broken families, in violence on our streets, in a culture that often glorifies evil as good. The very principles that once formed the foundation of society are now a tottering mass, ready to fall to ruin. Look at how criminals today are sometimes treated like celebrities. Their crimes splashed across headlines, inspiring others to follow in their footsteps. Meanwhile, justice often seems paralyzed. As the prophet Isaiah lamented, "Justice standeth afar off, for truth is fallen in the street and equity cannot enter." Isaiah 59:14. Corruption has seeped into every level of public life. Courts of law are tainted. Leaders seek personal gain over the public good. All of this is exactly what we'd expect if God's law is treated as irrelevant. Those who teach the people to regard lightly the commandments of God are really sowing seeds of disobedience. Remove the divine standard, and human standards soon crumble. If people no longer believe they answer to a higher authority, then honesty gives way to greed and the value of life is cheapened. Property isn't safe, relationships aren't safe. Promises mean little. The results are disastrous. Jesus foretold that in the last days, iniquity shall abound, and the love of many shall wax cold. Matthew 24:12. We have only to look at the news to see it coming true. Society is unwittingly fulfilling those ancient words as love grows cold in the climate of lawlessness. Amid the moral confusion, two major deceptions have taken hold in much of Christianity, like two poison streams mingling into the culture. These are the twin errors of natural immortality and false Sabbath sacredness. The first is the belief that the soul never truly dies. It isn't taught in Scripture, yet it has become widely accepted, and it opens the door to spiritualism, the attempt to communicate with the dead. The second error is the shift of sacredness from God's seventh-day Sabbath to Sunday, a change with no biblical basis, only human tradition. Prophecy warns that through the two great errors, the immortality of the soul and Sunday sacredness, Satan will bring the people under his deceptions. The immortality myth lays the foundation for spiritualism, and the false Sabbath creates a point of sympathy with Rome's traditions. Even now, we see this happening. Many Protestants, having cast away the clear truth of Scripture, are reaching across to join hands with spiritualism and with the papal power, fulfilling this prophecy of a great religious alliance. At the same time, there's a growing movement to exalt Sunday as a day of righteousness. In America especially, some argue that our nation's moral decline is because we've neglected Sunday churchgoing, and they insist that enforcing Sunday laws would restore morality. It sounds appealing. Who doesn't want to improve society's morals? But mixing a good cause with error is like hiding poison in food. It doesn't change the poison at all. And when honoring Sunday is required against the command of God, we face the same decision the apostles faced. We ought to obey God rather than men. Acts 5:29. That choice will reveal where our true allegiance lies, with the commands of men or the commandments of God. So far, we've seen a clear pattern. From Satan's ancient war on God's law to corruption within Christianity to a historical warning in France to today's lawless society, and even two big deceptions creeping into churches.
In today's video, we've seen how our world is crying out to bring God back into the United States of America. How people are desiring for our nation to become more Christ-like. Many even calling out, claiming the founding fathers founded a Christian nation, and it has gone astray from that point up to the point we're at now. The idea of Christian nationalism, the idea of a Christian nation under God and legislated through laws by a government that is godly. When our founding fathers came across the ocean and came to this nation, they were Christians. They founded a government with Christian principles and put people in places of government that had Christian values. They weren't made to be Christian, as the case is now. What's happening now is religion's going to be pushed in America, and it will be the Christian religion that's pushed. If you enjoyed this video, hit like and subscribe, and next week come back. I'll have more videos. The next one will be for spiritualism and how it's affecting our world today. Till then, see you next time.